Okay, hello, welcome to the MSU Turf Team Update. My name is Kevin Frank, here with Dr. Jeff Andresen to provide the weather. So go ahead, Jeff. Looks like you're already ready to go.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, straightforward forecast here. I think probably the operative word or phrase is summer-like. I guess term to describe where we're headed here. Looking back at the last week, though, interestingly enough, we did end up with the cool weather over the weekend. We had quite a few 30s reported overnight. A little bit of patchy frost up in the far northern part of the state again over the weekend. Our mean temperatures for the week, though, ended up a couple 2 to as much as 4 degrees below normal. The exception to that was here in the southwestern portion of the lower peninsula, where it was pretty close to normal. But most of the state was cooler than normal, given that cool Canadian air that we had over the state. Precip-wise, it depended on where you were. Most of the state was wetter than normal. Most of what you see here, and there's a lot of area, the yellow here is 2 inches or greater across the region. That was associated with the remnants of what was Tropical Storm Cristobal as it moved through on the 9th and 10th. So that's been all the way back almost 1 week in the past. And you can see certainly a lot of the northern and western portions of the state saw that heavier precipitation, but it definitely decreased as you head south and east. And once again, it's important to note here that the southeastern corner of the lower, which has been missed more than once the spring and the early summer thus far, they were missed again. And there were a number of, some locations you can see down here, especially in the Detroit metro area, where less than half an inch, some cases less than a quarter of an inch, fell precipitation. And that's going to play a role in terms of where we're headed as well. And one of the pieces of this, and this is something we don't look at very often, but from our EnviroWeather Mesonet, these are hourly potential evapotranspiration rates here for the last week at this is at our first site, our flagship site at the Hort Center on campus at MSU. And you can see really nice symmetrical patterns here. Again, these are hourly values, but what this all adds up to, so these are hourly totals up to 200, some cases 300ths of an inch of PET per hour. This is what the atmosphere is demanding, basically physically based on the sunlight, the solar radiation load, air temperature, humidity, and wind speed. Those are the 4 variables that go into calculating this. And you add these up, and all the way back to really the end of May, but certainly through June so far, we've been averaging consistently 0.2 to as much as a quarter of an inch of PET per day. And for Michigan, that's really on the high end. We typically don't see stretches like that, but if you look at the values, it was a little bit less than that this past weekend because of the cooler temperatures. But in general, we're up right at that 0.2 of an inch mark per day or higher. And so you start to do the math, and you realize, well, we're already right now moving into the middle of the month or past the middle of the month. That's quite a bit of water, at least that the atmosphere is demanding. And of course, the other part of this side of the coin is it's what it's demanding, but in many of our topsoils, especially in that southeastern part of the state, don't have the available water. And of course, you're seeing some of the beginning symptoms of moisture stress or wilting. And we are likely, very, very likely, almost guaranteed to see more of that here coming this week, given what the forecast is. This is the updated Vegetation Drought Response Index, thinking of water here. And again, 2 areas of the state that are distinctly different from most of the state, which we have lots of green and still doing very, very well for water. We've been above normal in most of the rest of the state. But the 2 exceptions here, of course, the western upper peninsula, which did get very good or much needed rain here last week with Cristobal, but also, as we just also talked about, the southeastern corner of lower Michigan, really from the southeastern corner north and eastward up into the eastern thumb. That's the driest area down in the southeastern part of the state. Much of the rest of Michigan has had more precipitation and is better off, but we will see a run on moisture everywhere this particular week with warm, dry, and high PET type of load situation setting up through the weekend. For our degree day totals seasonally from the beginning of March, with the cooler than normal week, we've fallen back a couple days, but in most of the state now, with the exception of some of the lakeshore areas, you can see are a couple calendar days behind normal. Given a much warmer than normal week, which is expected here, though, expect to see probably us a little bit more red on the map here next week at this point in time. But we're close to normal, just a little bit behind of what the climatology would say for this time of the year. Well, looking ahead here and really actually looking back also, I don't show very often that this is an upper air chart or diagram here. And as you listen to these briefings each week, you realize that really the key in the mid-latitudes of really the planet, the real key understanding our day-to-day and week-to-week weather patterns is making some sense out of this flow in the jet stream in the upper part of the troposphere. So we're talking 20 to 50,000 feet up above the surface. But these rivers of faster moving air really control most of the features down on the surface, like high and low pressure systems, really, really important. And right now, if you look at this, this is actually from this morning, you can see that across North America, we've got two troughs, one of them out here across the western part of North America, and then another one down here over the southeastern US, and you can see that that one is cut off from circulation. And then over Michigan and over the Great Lakes region, we've got a ridge which is sort of pinched here in between. And what all this means, a couple things about this. One is that while this very highly amplified flow, and by amplified I mean look at how much north-south extent there are in these features, that's common to see in a month like January or February in the cold season when the jet stream is as farthest or towards the equator, but not in June, not in the middle of summer. And much of this is really this amplified pattern has been the major cause of our major or wide swings in temperature and actually precipitation as well, going from much colder than normal and winter-like to very summer-like in just a matter of a few days. It's this kind of a pattern, and it's been, as I say, for the last several weeks, much more amplified than usual. And that's expected to continue to be the case, at least for this week. When we're going to look at the surface forecast here in the here in just a moment, but there are two weather systems on the surface. One of them, one's associated with this trough over the southeast and one over the west. And the maps we're going to look at are 24 hours apart, but you almost can't tell the difference because one of the other features of this is very little east to west movement. And we're going to see that in the forecast. So on our surface map here this morning, Michigan is currently under the influence of this big high pressure. This is a Canadian origin air mass that brought us all the cool weather over the weekend. It's moving off to the east, and with it, we'll see a return flow. Our winds will be shifting out of the south, and today and following, very, very noticeable, significant warm up in temperatures. All that cool air also moves off to the east. You can see the one weather system here off the southeast coast that's associated with the cutoff, and then way off here to the west and north. That weather system is the next one to impact us. But as you'll see, it's not moving anywhere quickly. I'm going to move to tomorrow, and there's a little bit of movement, but not much on the weather map. And then finally, here on Thursday morning, going out 48 hours, you can see this frontal boundary gets closer here. And again, we will see with this, that's the next chance for precipitation, but it probably earliest on Friday in the Upper Peninsula, western portions of the UP, but much of the state, we won't see any chance for precipitation until likely late Saturday. Better chance on Sunday, on Father's Day, and then probably persisting on into Monday. Now, the other big news with this is, I mentioned warmer temperatures. We're going to be underneath that ridge. There's going to be a lot of hot air moving in, and we will see temperatures here today on Tuesday, a full 5 to 10 degrees warmer than they were yesterday. And tomorrow, on Wednesday, even a couple degrees warmer than that. So our highs are going to shoot up well into the 80s, and by Friday and Saturday, much of the state will actually be looking at low 90s, and also significant and noticeable increase in humidity levels as well. Dew point temperatures will be up into the mid and upper 60s. So very, very becoming uncomfortable. It's going to be air conditioning weather for most of us here again for at least the second half of the work week, and probably for much of the upcoming weekend as well. So again, nothing's moving very fast here. It's going to be mostly sunny, hot, and dry here for the next several days. And with that, our potential evapotranspiration rates are going to be up near that quarter-inch level with full sunshine. So especially in areas that have not had as much precip lately, you're going to be looking for symptoms of moisture stress, especially during the afternoon hours, that will likely be showing up, where again, the plant can't keep up with the atmospheric demand. Forecast precipitation totals for the next week. This is through next Tuesday morning. You can see for most of the state, not on the heavy side, really most areas 1/4 to 1/2 an inch or less. And that is all basically what we're seeing from this weather system coming up this weekend. So yes, we will have a decent chance for showers and thunderstorms this weekend, but we are not expecting heavy rain, and certainly it won't make up for some of what will be lost, or at least what will be demanded here over the next several days. So it's a little bit of a break, but not enough to fully recharge, replenish things. So drier than normal conditions in general continuing here for much of the upcoming week. Going out into the medium range, a little bit of a less stressful type of a situation for the early part of next week. I've got both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks here because I think that there's enough difference in them. I think it's important. If we look at the forecast jet stream pattern here on the 6 to 10 day, the trough that was out over the western U.S., you can see has moved 1,000 miles to the east and is centered right over the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. And along with that, look for a fall off in temperatures early to middle part of next week. You can see mean temperature forecast here near to below normal mean temperatures. But just as importantly, it also suggests maybe at least more frequent chances for precipitation than we've had recently with above normal precipitation totals forecast. So after the weather system this weekend, there will be another, at least one, probably two more funnel boundaries that move through to give us another additional chances for precip after that into the middle of next week. Out into the 8 to 14 day time frame, so late next week and into the following weekend, you can see that trough continues. It's progressive. It continues to move off to the east. There's a little bit of a ridge to the west of that. And with that, note that we get another warm up to above normal levels of mean temperatures here suggested. So while it is cool, maybe cooler than normal, early part of next week, we warm back up to above normal once again by the end of the week and then following into the following weekend. It also suggests that we'll be in between areas here for precipitation of wetter than normal conditions to our south and east and drier than normal conditions to our west. So a little bit of a even odds type situation there, but still looking for significant changes every 3 or 4 days here. We're going to be hot here for the next several days, then cool down for the early part of next week, followed by a warm up once again after that. So summarizing here, very summer-like, warm, and we'll call it hot by the end of the week, with temperatures increasing back into the upper 80s and low 90s by the end of the week, and nighttime temperatures also increasing up into the 60s. Look for high demand for water, probably some moisture stress symptoms developing here very, very quickly over the next couple days. And then the next chance for precip not until very late Friday or Saturday in the far northern western parts of the state, more likely overnight Saturday, Sunday on Father's Day for the rest of the state. But rainfall still might be limited with that particular system. Cooling off a little bit by the early part of next week, but warming up and again by the end of next week. So more of our temperature roller coaster continues, but in general, very, very summer-like. And with that, I'll wrap up and see if you have any questions or any comments.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, definitely that change that you were talking about. I think with the high temperatures now, the dryness, we're certainly starting to see, at least in turf situations, especially like landscape turf, stuff that maybe not be irrigated or general maintenance areas that are really starting to brown out already. And I would expect that that's probably going to continue based on your forecast and the fact that there's not much rain in the forecast. So something to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
I guess one positive thing is with that, and we've had above normal precip over a lot of the state going back months climatologically. And so there is moisture still at depth. It's just where the roots can make use of it or access it. And of course, a lot of that use here so far in the warm season has been up in the top of the profile. That's the one always is out first. And of course, we see it reflected too by the soil types that hold less soil. So it's especially acute, again, up in the top several inches to foot or so of the profile.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to hearing from you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.